gosh, look at this thing.
The question is no longer if they are here, but why.
What are they doing? What do they want from us? What are their motivations? There are cases that are not explainable in conventional terms.
That have been made by credible observers of relatively incredible things.
When we got right up to it, it lit up.
Was this a warning? Was this an attempt to communicate?
Felt scared.
I was running and playing, and then I saw this maroon color in the sky.
It was not anything from this earth.
He was looking at all of us.
Maybe they're trying to communicate.
They were reaching out to us.
There is an immense array of unanswered questions and an urgent need to get to the bottom of it.
The public has a right to know.
The question is no longer if they are here, but why.
What are they doing? What do they want from us? What are their motivations?
For over 75 years, there have been sightings in the sky.
The UFO shut down several missile silos in Montana.
Thousands of witnesses worldwide.
It had to be a data collection. I'm sure they scanned the warhead.
Just kind of hovering there. It never changed its longitudinal axis. And then it goes poof and it takes off the side.
And high-level cover-ups.
The government was covering up what happened at Roswell.
Hiding these dark secrets.
I was told there wasn't anything there when I knew there was.
People need to know there is something else out there.
Yes, there had been visitation, crashed craft, material recovered.
Shouldn't we be spending some money to study all these phenomena?
I knew this was breaking news for the front page of the New York Times.
They were trying to communicate, trying to tell us something.
Now it's time to tell people about it.
These things are real. They're here. This is happening now.
The Phenomenon, showing in theaters nationwide this September. We're excited to have the filmmaker behind the amazing production known as The Phenomenon. The director, James Fox, is with us, and we're going to go over the 70 years of history right up to the fresh discoveries that changed everything as we know it. It opens up providing the shocking hidden history that began in the late 40s and 50s when fleets of UFOs appeared in the skies over nearly every state in the US, culminating in a flyover of Washington D.C. This documentary includes never-before-seen archival footage, and it's beautifully shot with new interviews deploying high-caliber journalism and edge-of-your-seat storytelling that takes audiences on a revelatory journey that leads them to unsettling, unavoidable conclusions that we're not alone. Now, let's get to James. He's with us, and we're live, and we're doing it. James, thanks for joining us right here at Third Phase of Moon.
Thanks for having me on.
You know, it is a pleasure. It's been a few years since you've been on the show, and it's good to have you back. I know you've been busy. You spent some time on these documentaries. You got this new one coming out, The Phenomenon. Let's just get straight to the point. What's the most incredible thing that you're going to find out when you watch this documentary? We got a sneak peek at it, and you were revealing documents that I've never seen before.
You know, I've had a handful of private screenings, and with some people that have very little to no background on the phenomenon at all. And we're dealing also with close encounters of the third kind, which is an aspect of the phenomenon that I've avoided in the past. But everyone who's walked out of the theater, I think the last screening we had was about 120 people. They didn't say, gosh, I'm not so sure that event actually happened or that landing happened. It's like, oh my God, that's why they're here, something like this. So I think that, we're, with the help of people like Jacques Vallée, George Knapp, really, really good writers and researchers, we're putting the pieces of the puzzle together to make it presentable to mainstream. And it's working.
When you're bringing out some of the big wigs like Podesta and other people that worked in the government that are basically stating that there's something out there that we don't know, and you're doing a great job uncovering it. I can't wait for the people to watch this incredible documentary. One of my favorite parts is when you go to Zimbabwe and meet with the kids that had this incredible sighting that just shocked the whole school, where a flying saucer and an alien visited them on the school grounds. What did you make of that when you went to visit these kids years later? You see it in their eyes. Something happened.
Yeah, so let me back up on that one, because I remember hearing about it in the 90s when I was working on my first documentary, UFOs, 50 Years of Denial. And I was just naive enough at the time to think that I could get an interview with Steven Spielberg. And we had a mutual friend, this woman, Janet Yang. And she's like, yeah, he's not going to meet with you. But he does want you to know that there was a pretty compelling landing case that took place in Africa. And I thought, yeah, right. I didn't even look into it 1 second further. I just completely walked away from just dismissed it immediately, because I said to myself, there's no way that there could be a landing and occupants getting out in broad daylight with over 100 witnesses and for the whole world not to have heard about it. So I just wrote it right off. And I think it was about 10 years before I even looked into it again. And now I'm absolutely convinced, as is anyone else that looks at the evidence, that it actually happened. And going to the actual landing site, and funny enough, I've had 5 or 6 different executive producers on this project, as is with most films I've made. And I remember the first guy, I was trying to convince him into, flying all these witnesses in and bringing them together for the first time in 20 years. And he's going, you mean to tell me that a flying saucer landed and the occupants bullshit? I said, no, just hold on a second. Look at this compelling film footage back in the 90s of the children. Look, please. So it's been an uphill battle the whole way. And going to Africa and going to the landing site and meeting additional witnesses there and talking to the headmistress, who at the time was a teacher, Judy Bates. It's a slam dunk. That case is absolutely phenomenal.
It brought back the memories of, I remember the story, but the way you retell it and get the new interviews is what's incredible, just to follow up on this experience. And you could see it in their eyes that something happened that they can't explain, and they're still moved by that experience. And I'm kind of jealous. If I were in school, I sure would want that to happen to us. I'm envious of these kids, whether they took it one way or the other. What was your impression? Did they feel humbled and grateful for their experience?
One of the aspects of the encounter, unfortunately, and I don't know why, did not make it into the movie. And that is their description when they were adults and they had time to kind of reflect back on what had happened, and they were obviously more articulate and could, describe in better detail the experience. And they all agreed that if you've ever been out in nature, out in the wilderness, and you have a really, really rare encounter with a wild animal, there's that moment of intrigue and curiosity, that standoff, where it's a benign encounter, but both parties are kind of frozen and curious and just wanting to know and learn. They said that's what it was like with these beings, and that they had these logs that would define the outer perimeter of the playground, that the children were not allowed to go beyond these logs because the grounds weren't maintained, and there were snakes and stuff that could potentially be harmful to the children, so they were allowed to go all the way to these logs. And the children would go as children, being children, and they would dance and skip along these logs right at the far edge of the playground. And a couple of the children had recounted that when they were skipping along these logs, the beings were joyfully doing the same thing, sort of mimicking their behavior. And that also didn't. But, it sounds unbelievable. And I would say to anyone out there, I totally get it if you don't believe this happened. Believe me, I didn't believe it. But when you look at the evidence, you look at the testimony, you review previous cases, previous landing cases, there's significant evidence that this event occurred.
It definitely does seem so, and you could kind of feel it in your gut. Now, you've come out with some of these stories, but just because of the stories, you're not only bringing that forward, but you're bringing new evidence forward, paperwork, documents of these reported landing sites. How did you come across some of these reports that have never seen by the public before?
Well, we had tremendous level of participation and help behind the scenes. And I mean, a lot of people were pulling a lot of strings behind the scenes. I mean, like I said, Jacques Vallée has been on board for several years now. He's been bringing out his file cabinets, putting me in touch. All the researchers have made their research and their contacts available to us. It's been, the stars lined up, that's all I can say. And it's just one of those moments where it was a group effort. Everyone got on board and made a miracle happen, is all I can tell you. I don't know how else to say it. Did you watch the film?
I sure did. I got the screener sent to me, and I was fascinated through the whole thing. What really got me is that the level of detail that you go through. How long did it actually take you to edit this, and where did you even think about beginning?
Okay, so 7 years. I've been editing the edit room for 3.5 years, and the version that you're looking at now is about 1/50th as good as the version that's coming out in about a week. And the reason being is we hired, we're doing color correction all the way through, attention to detail to all the lower thirds, all the graphics, all that imagery stuff has been combed through for, 2.5 months now. 2 months. We hired a sound engineer who's won 8 Emmy Awards. He works with James Cameron because this is going to get a theatrical release, and so we decided, and that's one of the reasons why it got delayed a little bit. We didn't submit the film on time, but I figured it was well worth the wait because in the theater there's a certain level of expectation that the audience has, and if you don't deliver on that, they might not be able to pinpoint what it is that bothers them, but something will bother them because, you're in a theater, you expect a certain level. So we decided to go ahead and do a complete, which took another 6 weeks. So the version that's coming out in about a week or 10 days is so much tighter. And then all the shots that we desperately tried to get into the film that were just, 10 out of 10 shot, scene, statement, whatever, from around the world, China, from Belgium, from South America, we made a little collection, and then we did a really cool title sequence at the end. So you have titles, then you have statements, and you have titles and statements and montages. It's really, really, really cool. So it's been 7 years, and I'd say at least half of that has been in the edit room and painstakingly going over. Like I laugh oftentimes. People go to tie their shoe when they're watching the film. I'm like, okay, you just missed about 6 months of work because every frame has been carefully thought out. I'm not kidding, really.
Yeah, if it's going to be, as you say, with these improvements, that what's going to be seen on the big screen, from what I already saw, I can't even imagine how much better it could get. But this sounds pretty exciting. I'm hoping maybe I could get it on the big screen myself. Let me ask you, it was kind of perfect timing now with the DOD admitting that they were doing an investigation into the UFO phenomenon for approximately, I'm not sure, what was it, about 10 years, $20 million. And now they're admitting that there's something in the skies that they don't know what's going on. And you integrate this new news and this new secret program of the investigation into the documentary. How did it all come to fruition when you started working on it 7 years ago on this new information that's coming out?
Well, we were in the depths of editing. And in fact, I think I might have maybe either just got back from Australia or maybe I got back from Africa. I can't remember. But in any case, that New York Times article dropped at the end of 2017. And that was a huge big deal. And I was like, oh, okay, wow. I had a kind of a feeling that something good was going to happen before the end of this film. But I didn't think it was going to be this good. So I had to go back to the investors and say, guys, we got to take another year. We got to document this whole development. And so we went after the key players. And that took some time. And it was quite tenuous at best at times, but we miraculously pulled that one off. I mean, getting an interview with Senator Harry Reid and the stuff that he says on camera, that was a wow moment for me, because I don't know if you recall, I call it the plastic water bottle moment, where I asked him a pretty profound question. It's something that we've all suspected has been going on, and he takes a moment, undoes the cap, takes a sip, puts the cap back on, and then delivers the punchline, which was, I mean, I had to pinch myself sitting down at the time because that's about as close to disclosure as I've ever heard.
Yeah, you're gonna have to see the movie to find out this punchline. But let me tell you, it's a jaw dropper. And what's incredible to me as well is that the information that's getting out, and that we're all on board, and that's what we at Third Phase of Moon's about, is getting the information out as fast as possible. But to sit on a project for 7 years is something that's, takes some time and a lot of patience. But you did it right. You got the information coming in. Have you got any kind of pushback, any kind of warnings not to come out with this documentary?
No, we know that we're stepping on some pretty big toes. I know that Senator Harry Reid got a lot of pushback from the intelligence communities when he wanted to launch ATIP and put some funding into the whole phenomenon. But we have some pretty significant people behind us on this film, so I feel kind of a lot more comfortable, at ease about it all. And I think there's a certain level of participation that's happening for whatever reason. One could speculate. I think there's a handful of people that think that it's time for this reality to come out. It seems to be coming out. And like I said, the stars aligned, and we got unprecedented level of participation at all government and military people. And now we're getting a theatrical release, which is just, it's been a lifelong dream of mine. I tried with the last 4 documentaries on the topic to do this, and looks like we finally succeeded.
Well, let me tell you, getting to the big screen's no easy feat. We did it last year, and the DCP process, the VPF fees, and the whole aspect of it is monstrous, just even try and comprehend getting the film into the big screen. But congrats on that, and I'm sure these improvements are going to make it an incredible experience to watch it on the big screen. Let me ask you this. Do you think now that we have the 6th military branch, the Space Force, we're going to be even getting more of these videos coming in from the State Department, the DOD, or are they going to keep it silent? Because even these videos sounds like it's the tip of the iceberg.
Well, funny enough, I didn't realize this when we got former Deputy Secretary of Defense for Intelligence, Christopher Mellon, which was months of back and forth before we finally made that happen. And I didn't know when I went to meet with him in D.C. that he was instrumental in getting those tapes out of the Pentagon. And they didn't break the law, but they bent the rules. They found a loophole, and they walked them out of the Pentagon. But there are so many more, from what I'm told, that haven't been released. Really good, unambiguous, wonderful shots and film footage. I know that the Navy confirmed that those were bona fide, unidentified aerial phenomena, but they said that we would not have released them to the public. I'm very curious to know who can actually authorize it, because one of the things I keep learning over and over again is that it doesn't even seem that our elected representatives have control of this. It's kind of baffling to me. It's like, well, who has the authority to have this stuff released? And everyone's like, oh, well, the president, but I don't think he does. I'm not sure who does. And I'm not sure what it's going to take to get the real good evidence out of there. Because I can tell you, the stuff that we have is good, that we're featuring in the film, but the stuff that's not been released is like, landings. I know it. They have footage of landings. I know they do.
This is what the world is waiting for. Sure, these videos are compelling, but it sounds like what they have that they're not sharing with us would be basically smoking gun proof. I'm just wondering if there's some kind of possible whistleblower, if the program would actually work for in some kind of case like this. I know it involves national security at points when they're shutting down nuclear missiles when they have UFO encounters. So there might be a national security issue, but then there is that Whistleblower Protection Act. I'm just wondering if that would be the avenue that maybe someone could take and get these videos released.
I think that with films like The Phenomenon and efforts coming from from us, the people, arming people with information and educating them as to what's been going on, A lot of people think that, it's obviously just some sort of new phenomenon. And that's one of the reasons why I went into the historical perspective, not to bore the UFO community with more, stuff. We put a lot of new, great, wonderful material in archive material, but I did it because if we were to penetrate a much broader audience, a much more mainstream audience, one would have to assume that they don't have the information, the background history on the topic to even remotely consider the likelihood of the landing at Rua, Zimbabwe. So we felt more than just compelled, we felt it was mandatory for us to cover the history. We kind of jokingly called it eating our spinach when we were doing it. Eat your spinach, audience. So we had just the right amount of spinach so we could educate the population better as to what's been going on and the shift in policy and why the secrecy and how it's all come about, so that they know that programs like ATIP that ended up on the front page of the New York Times is not the first program, nor will it be the last.
Definitely, it's a good start, and we need more of that kind of breaking news. And your film is on its way to break the news to the world. How can people see the phenomenon? When, where, and when is it going to be downloadable as well?
So it's coming out in theaters in September. I'm sorry, I wish it was sooner, but they needed a certain time period for all the preparations that go into a theatrical release. They're going to play it in the trailer in theaters, I think, just about 2 months prior to the release date. There's Netflix and Starz and A&E have already been looking at this film, so it'll be released on that. Probably, I couldn't say definitively, probably by the end of the year, or just stay in touch with our website and we'll have updates. But it's hitting big, and it's hitting big this year.
Well, we'll be definitely letting everybody know at Third Phase of Moon where and when to watch it, the exact dates. We're going to be actually supplying the website to James Fox's site to the phenomenon, so you could keep up to date on that, when and where to watch it. But what's up on the horizon? What do you expect, if there's going to be any more leaks from the government, any more information that's going to blow the roof off this phenomenon?
So what's happening right now, there's a lot of really cool developments that are going on behind the scenes. I'm sorry, somebody lit up one of these weed whacking devices right next to where I'm interviewing you guys. But there's a lot of very high profile people that are paying attention right now. I know this because I'm communicating with them, household names. And there's also people that behind the scenes are going to be using the film as a tool to get more traction within the elected representatives, because there's been talks on the Hill that I'm aware of. So, stay tuned. It's all hands on deck, and everybody feels like now's the time. So we'll just have to see and do the best we can, and get as much participation and much revealed as possible.
Well, we're going to be standing by for that, James. Appreciate you joining us right here at Third Phase Moon. You keep up the good work. You be safe out there. Get back to editing so the world could watch this new revelation known as the phenomenon. We can't wait.
Of relatively incredible things.
When we got right up to it, it lit up.
Was this a warning? Was this an attempt to communicate?
Felt scared. I was running and playing, and then I saw this maroon color in the sky.
It was not anything from this earth.
He was looking at all of us.